What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic, and once again, I have another collection update for you. So this one will actually feature the stuff that we got in the head split grab bag that they were so kind to send us. Well, minus the stuff that I gave to John, except for maybe a couple that I wanted to go over before I gave it back to John. The stuff that I already had in there, I definitely wanted to make sure he got a copy of because there's some wild shit on that label. Also got some stuff from Caligari Records, Rotted Life Records I believe is in here, and Nuclear War Now, so yeah, I'm back to stalking the distros, which, yeah, that's kind of what I like doing. And then just some random stuff that I've picked up along the way and some more new releases that I didn't get a chance to cover in reviews. So yeah, let's get on with this thing. Devil's Vomit, Backwoods, Redneck, Occult. This is the first demo from this finished Death Grind act, and honestly, like, looking at the title, I thought, you know, rednecks were kind of just an American thing. But maybe they have them in Finland. I know we fucking definitely have them here. I mean, I'm in Ohio. We got rednecks. Actually, it is the 4th of July right now when I'm recording this, and I'm reasonably sure there's some dude in US flag board shorts chugging fucking tall boys and arguing with his buddy about whether a Ford or a fucking Chevy is better. That's the rednecks that I know. I don't know what Finnish rednecks are like. I just know Finland puts out killer fucking death metal, and in this case, some death grind, and shit, this fucking demo whoops ass. This is 6 tracks in about 8 minutes, and it is a blitz of grind and death metal, like pretty much Terrorizer played at nauseam speed. This is an absolutely furious demo. Little bits of groove here and there, like you definitely get a little bit of that old school Repulsion feel in here. And the vocals kind of have like a Chris Reifert sort of autopsy flair to them, which I absolutely love how gloriously over the top they sound. It's very sludgy, very dirty, very raw, but that's kind of what I expected. And honestly, with this style, I kind of want. This is definitely a style of metal I don't want it to sound too polished. I need it to sound gritty and dirty, and they absolutely nailed that. A lot of the stuff actually kind of reminded me of Death Breath, just in terms of the tongue-in-cheek nature. I mean, there's some ridiculous stuff on here. I mean, Junkie Slasher is the opening track. Self-Autopsy, don't try that at home. Cannibalistic Possession, like this definitely kind of revels in how over the top it is. I absolutely love this demo. I think this is a great start for this band because this just flat out whoops ass, and a very concise release at only 8 minutes. But yeah, if you love death grind and you love like Terrorizer, Nauseam, Repulsion, Autopsy, any of the bands that I listed, definitely check this out. This absolutely whoops ass. Expression of Pain, self-titled. This is the debut album from this Canadian grindcore / power violence act. And just to let you know, this is like the head split stuff here. I'll let you know when I switch gears, but I wanted to get through all the head split stuff first. But holy shit, this is some awesome grindcore. In fact, this reminds me a lot of Disrupt. So maybe a little bit on the crust punk side occasionally. Like there's a lot of D beats, but there's a fuck ton of blasts. The riffs are sludgy, and this is 16 songs in 16 minutes, which when I saw that was like, all right, let's fucking go. Heavy, fast, it pretty much moves like a fucking freight train moving at a bullet train speed through this because it is so thick and heavy. I love the guitar tone. There's a lot of like early Napalm Death on here. There's even some more death metal or death grind moments in the songs Wretch and Detained, but this album absolutely flies by, and just while you're recovering from the last track actually kicking the shit out of you, you're getting the shit kicked out of you by the next track. So I kind of like that pace, but I love grind, so that's kind of the pace I'm used to. There's some cool alternating vocals between like low gurgles and some high screams. This is very primal. There's not much sophistication, but who the fuck cares? It's grindcore. Sophistication is welcome, but not always needed. This is a concise and brutal fucking album. Rarely ever slows down. I want to say Torsion Trap was probably the only moment where it kind of like led in the song a little bit more slowly and then inevitably just exploded into blast beats and fucking chugs and guttural vocals, all the shit you love about grind. This is a badass debut. I'd never heard of this band until Headsplit was kind enough to actually give us a copy of this album, and it absolutely whoops ass. So now I have another grindcore band to look out for. Much like me, if you have never heard of this band, well, up until this video, strongly recommend checking this out. If you're a giant fan of Nauseam, Disrupt, Brutal Truth, I just say grindcore in general, check this out. It is a monstrous debut. Graveater, Harrowing Remains. This is the first demo from this Estonian death thrash act. It's a 2-man act, and as far as I could look up, the members are known as Cadaver 1 and Cadaver 2, and I believe both of them are ex-members of the band Coffin, with a K, which I actually went over in a collection update like fucking forever ago. Now, Coffin was just straight up old school death metal. This is nasty, rabid death thrash. Very murky, but very intense. I love the reverb-drenched vocals. I would say this definitely goes back and like primarily locks on to like early Sepultura, Sarcophago, Possessed. Like it has that kind of proto or really early death metal sound. But of course, a lot of thrash metal riffs in there, and even like some kind of like 80s speed metal. Like there's definitely some stuff in here that reminded me a lot of the band Vulture, which I absolutely love how gloriously over the top that band is. As this is a first demo, like the songs definitely feel a little rough. Like they're definitely just kind of going for the aggression, playing it fast, playing it evil, but honestly, I kind of like that. This kind of sounds a lot like the, you know, unhinged, just flying fast South American style of like thrash metal and death metal, and I really dig that shit. Or if you wanted to compare it to something a little bit more current that's also kind of retro, this sounds like a death thrash version of Hell Ripper. This is only a 4-track demo, but I really dig it. The last track I thought was kind of odd, Raped in a Chapel. It kind of has this like Freddy Krueger-ish, like, you know, 80s horror end, and I think what they intended was to have, you know, growls in the background or something like that, and it honestly sounds like someone snoring, and they were just like, fuck it, we'll throw some reverb on that snore and it'll sound evil, I think, maybe. Fuck it, they won't know the difference. But yeah, I really dig this one, and this is one that John selected in the pile, so I gotta give it back to him, but luckily I managed to rip this to my computer, so I technically have it. But he did call the CD, so I will give it back to him. But yeah, this is pretty slick stuff. I dig the old school death thrash sound. I mean, that old Possessed fucking rawness. So yeah, if any of that sounds really appealing, I strongly recommend checking this out. This was a lot of fun to listen to. Necropsy Odor Tales from the Tepid Cavity. This is the first demo from this California death grind act. Came out last year, and this is just straight up carcass worshipping, maybe early Repulsion worshipping death grind. It's absolutely insane and kind of self-aware in terms of the hilariousness of it. For example, I actually went over the names of the band members. It's a 3-piece, but the names are great. We have Mike Titian, who is on bass, Jaundice Frostbite on drums, and Sematary Rose, like Sem-Mat, like his name's in there. It's clever. On guitars. And they all contribute on vocals. A lot of it is that ultra deep gurgle where it might be pitch shifted, you know, kind of like the early Carcass stuff, but it's very effective bouncing off from like twisted screams. Like again, it definitely has a lot of Carcass vibes on here. 6 songs, 10 minutes. The production is complete and utter filth, kinda like Reek of Putrefaction, so if you like that aesthetic, you'll definitely like this album. I think it might be a little too rough, but of course at the same time I was like, dude, these riffs are fucking sick, and there's even some surprising clean melodies here and there. But I like the commitment to making this sound just fucking gross. Like the guitars and the bass sound like they were submerged in a fucking swamp, pulled out, and then they didn't even fucking clean off shit, just plugged it in and like, yeah, whatever noise it makes, we're recording. The song titles are ridiculous. Impaled by a Tree, Cooked in Vomit. That is fucking horrible. Femur Bone Toothpick, which is probably what you used to pick your teeth after the meal that was cooked in vomit. I love stuff like that where it's just so hyper gory and gross, like it can't be taken serious. Like it's gone past the point of actually being gross to the point where it's actually hilarious. That is always fun in metal for me. And there's a weird sample in here, and I can't remember which one it was, but I think they sampled Zach Baggins from that Ghost Hunter show or Ghost Adventures, whatever the fuck his fucking show is. I don't like that douchey bro bag. But anyway, it sounds like it's him in there, and I don't know, I just thought it was a weird sample that popped up on there, but yeah. This is a killer demo. The production's kind of rough, but it is a demo, but I think this is like an intentionally rough sounding album, like again, like Reek of Putrefaction and shit like that, but I dig it overall. Like the songwriting is the main thing, the riffs are solid, I just love the kind of goofy, fun, self-aware, sort of just hyper gory shit on here. So while it is rough around the edges, I fucking love it. I want to hear more about this band already, and like I said, if you like early Carcass, Repulsion, maybe Terrorizer too, just check this out. This is some nasty shit. Sadistic Drive, Perpetual Torture. This is the second album from this Finnish death metal act. I actually picked up their first one a while ago, and I absolutely love it. It's Anthropophagy. It's a fucking awesome old school death metal album. I heard about these guys because I picked up Morbific, and it turns out couple of members of Morbific are in this band as well. And actually there's a member of Devil's Vomit in here too. Now this is just straight up old school 90s death metal worship. I love the really nasty crawling riffs that are all over here, like very much like Autopsy, early Death. Actually, I would even compare this band to Undeath in a way, like they have that much of a retro sound. Production's a little bit more raw, but I don't know, I kind of like it because this is something I feel that needs to sound filthy. There's a little bit of carcass worship on here too, like some, ultra deep vocals bouncing back and forth between screams. And they do squeeze in a little bit of like the finished Death Doom sound here and there, like you'll get a couple of nasty Death Doom breaks, but a lot of this is very groove laden. This definitely latches on firmly to like early Cannibal Corpse in a lot of spots, like very riffy, kind of like the bleeding style grooves on some of this stuff, but kind of mix that with Carcass too. And compared to their debut, I think it's just a little bit tighter musically, like in terms of like the playing, the transitions. I think it's a little bit catchier too. And while this definitely sounds very raw, it's produced quite a bit better. Like I like the sound of the drums on this one, and the bass is very prominent, but there's been a little bit of mud kind of scraped off the production versus the debut, and I think that kind of lets a lot of the actual instrumentation shine. I gotta say they had a lot of fun with movie samples. The opening on Murderous Megalomania is the weird little speech about I like death, I like this world from Cyborg, that movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, like that narrows it down. It was a weird 90s movie, or maybe even late 80s. I don't know, like dystopian future, he's got to be the nomadic hero or something like that. I don't know. It's, okay. But the quote's pretty cool. And on Formless Corpses, at the end, they throw in the whole Jesus wept quote from Hellraiser, which I fucking love that movie. So that's always welcome. But yeah, this is pretty fucking sick, and I completely missed that this band was coming out with a second album. So thank you very much to Headsplit Records for setting this one in particular. I already liked this band. I didn't even know that they had a follow-up. This came out, I believe, all the way back in March, and I totally fucking missed it. So, yeah, I don't know if it's like a year-end material because, well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to consider, but I fucking really dig this. And if you like Undeath and Cannibal Corpse and Autopsy and Carcass, and, well, Morbific too, which I know those guys made like kind of a splash in terms of the underground, definitely check this out. This is a fucking killer follow-up to their debut. Sequestrum, the Epitome of Putridity. This is the first demo from this Danish death metal act that actually features members of Chaodian, Frenolith, and Undergang. And, well, this is just absolutely foul and disgusting. In between every track, and sometimes even during the tracks, there's like dripping, there's barfing, or gagging. It's just a gross listen, and when you throw in the production, the guitars are sludgier than hell. The bass is pure fucking mud. Drums sound pretty good. And then you have the vocals. We got deep bullfrog vocals, very Demolich-ish, or actually Undergang-ish. But this definitely feels a lot like early Carcass worship. So imagine Undergang playing Carcass songs, like Symphonies of Sickness and Reek of Putrefaction in particular, and you'll kind of get the vibe of this demo. Now, I did take issue with the production here because it is so fucking muddy, like to the point where some of the more intricate riffs are just kind of buried in the mud, and again, the bass tone is just indistinct. Like you can't hear a single note fucking plucked on here because this is literally just swamped in fucking filth. But at the same time, the atmosphere and the vocals and all this sludginess is kind of fun. Like this is a disgusting listen, but I was definitely intrigued by it. There's a lot of groove to it. There's good pockets of blast beats. Again, I think with like just a slightly better production, like you can still be gross and well mixed. This would stand out even more. Now, granted, this is a first demo, but there's a lot going on that I already like. Like, first off, like, look at that logo. That logo is absolutely awesome, how they just put in, like, corpses and bones and shit. And again, the atmosphere being so wretchedly fucking filthy. It's not stomach-churning, at least for me, but if you're sensitive to, like, gag noises and shit like that, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna be your thing, because there's a lot of them. But overall, I kind of like this. Like, I just needs a little bit more love in terms of production. Like, I know the whole idea was to make the sound gross, but like this sounds even more rough than that Necropsy Odor demo. But in terms of the music, I fucking love it. I think it's just absolutely disgusting sounding, and of course that early Carcass stuff like Symphonies of Sickness I think is particularly good. I'm not the biggest fan of Reek, but Symphonies is fucking awesome, and this kind of has that vibe. But yeah, if you like that, you like you know, Autopsy, and you like the sound of maybe a toilet running with someone throwing up in it repeatedly and maybe choking on chunks of vomit or blood. I don't know what the dude's condition is, but it's not good. Definitely check this out. This was a fun fucking release, and I look forward to hearing more in the future from this one, just albeit with some better production. Check it out. Warhawk Pray for War. This is the first album from this Swedish, I guess, heavy metal, hard rock act. It sounds like Motorhead. Like, this is some pretty spot-on Motorhead worship. The riffs, the drums, the vocals are actually pretty damn good. Like, it has that raspy throatiness that we all love from Lemmy. And riff-wise, like, this is just fast, aggressive, kind of sleazy, heavy metal. I would say essentially it's party music for metalheads. Like, it keeps a steady beat to it, like it stays kind of up-tempo. The songs are, again, sleazy and dirty and just kind of fun. The riffs are catchy, a little bit bluesy here and there. And granted, while a lot of it sounds so spot on to Motorhead that it kind of feels a little bit borrowed, I dig it. Like, I love that sound. I love Motorhead. And honestly, I mean, if you like Midnight, like, this is definitely that style of band. Like, it kind of has one gear, but they play it well, and the riffs are fucking sound. Now, they do get a little bit thrashier in here, especially in the song Bad News. Like, that one is a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more up-tempo, but a lot of this kind of just sticks to that Iron Fist, Ace of Spades sort of formula and just kind of rolls with it. But yeah, not much to it. Like, it's just sort of a fun release. It kind of just flies by, but honestly, you're headbanging the entire time. And again, while the songs are memorable for maybe mostly sounding like Motorhead, they're still really good. This was a fun fucking album to jam. And I mean, if you love Motorhead and Midnight and just shit like that, like classic heavy metal, definitely check this out. This was a fun release. Lord Belial, Rapture. It's the 9th album from the Swedish black metal act. First one in 14 years, I believe. They kind of go through a lot of like breakups and reformations. And this is legit my first exposure to Lord Belial. Like, I've definitely heard of them. Hell, the Metalhead box sent me a t-shirt, and I didn't wear the shirt until I actually listened to the band just because, you know, I wanted to actually have some familiarity with it, and I don't want to be some fucking lame-ass poser, because those are the worst fucking people, right? But I can say I will gladly wear that shirt again. Actually, I wore it recently in a review because I'd listened to this at this point, and yeah, this is fucking awesome. This is very melodic, but aggressive black metal. Like, they kind of found like the best parts of bands like Sacramentum and maybe like Marduk and kind of blended it together, because this is riffier than hell. There's a lot of cool atmosphere on it. It's not just all blast beats, but blast beats are all over here, and they definitely drive the songs, but you get some really good groovy breakdowns. The atmosphere is nice and evil, but it kind of has that gothic feel to it too. Especially on the song Belie the Gods, it kind of slows it down. There's a little bit more synths to it, and I don't know, the atmosphere kind of just gets, I don't know, just kind of creepy and unsettling, but in kind of that like romanticized gothic sort of way. I love the more anthemic tracks in here, like Evil Incarnate and Alpha and Omega. They have like a good like sort of war march vibe to them. And Infinite Darkness of Death has some really cool like mellow death riffs to it. There's a little bit of death metal on here kind of just to broaden out the sound, but I mean, overall, I dug this like pretty much every aspect. The production's solid. I love the sound of the guitars. They have just such a great crunch to them, but there's still enough kind of rawness to it, and the songwriting is top notch. Just good variety in this album, and it's just a very epically evil listen, and I really dig that. So yeah, I'm officially initiated into Lord Belial. I have to get some more stuff, and yeah, this was a fucking killer release. Way to come back after 14 years and put out a fucking legit banger of an album. But yeah, if you have never jammed Lord Belial, this would not be a bad place to start, but I mean, this is the only thing I've really listened to by him, so I don't know, like, I can't compare it to any of their other releases, but eventually I will, because I definitely want to get more of their stuff. But yeah, definitely check this out. This is fucking killer black metal. Cryptum, Vile Emergence EP. This is the debut EP from this Illinois-based death metal act. Came out this year on Caligari Records. It actually features members of the band Molder, which I've become very familiar with, and I'm looking forward to their new album coming out here soon. And this is some nasty, straight-up, old-school death metal. Very doomy start to the opening track, Torrent of Infinite Time, and a lot of this kind of reminds me of like the early years of Skeletal Remains. Like, it just has that old-school sort of like Floridian, chunky death metal, lots of groove to it. I will say sometimes they do lay on some riffs a little too long, which is rarely a complaint of mine, but Volitional Sacrilege, it kind of just lays on one riff for a little too much. But a lot of this I really dug. It's just straight up old school death metal. It kind of varies in pace, so you get like fast tracks. The last track, the title track, is kind of like death grindy, but you get like thrashy sections and Dead Celestial Body. And the production on here is really good. Like, it just has a raw, organic sound. It's well mixed, like all the levels are nice. Nothing overtly muddy on here. It just sounds really good. I want to say I heard about these guys courtesy of Death Metal Promotion. Like, they just had this entire EP on there, and this is just a solid 15 minutes of good old school death metal. Now granted, I think there's a ton of death metal on here. In fact, most of this collection update is fucking death metal. But this is still really well done. Again, like the riffs, the songwriting's solid. This is a good, solid first offering for a band, too. And it doesn't sound like Molder, which I think is really good, because Molder has kind of got their own, like, old school death metal with, like, a little bit of thrash to it. This kind of sticks straight to death metal. It's only about 15 minutes long with these 4 tracks, but this is a pretty solid listen. So, yeah, if you just like old school death metal and, you know, just nasty fucking 90s style riffing, definitely check this out. Dripping Decay, Watching You Rot. This is the first demo from this Portland death metal, maybe death grind act. Features members from a lot of bands, I would say namely Blood Freak, Frightmare, and Thanatopsis are the ones that really stood out to me. And this is kind of exactly what you expect from the whole Portland scene. Like, this is some murky, disgusting death metal with great fucking riffs. I love the horror synth aspect. In fact, the opening track, Prelude to Decomposition, it has like a very specific vibe to the horror synths. Like, it's one of those, like, you need to walk faster, you need to run because someone's fucking chasing you and they're probably gonna put a machete in your fucking skull. Like, I like that specific fucking vibe. It kind of like sets up the pace for like the actual opening track, Cremator, which once you get down to that track, old school Exhumed, Cretan, Repulsion, but a lot of like old school death metal mixed in there too. Like, it's kind of death grindy, but it's considered death metal. But the intensity is fucking great on here. The songs are short but well written. Like, it has good peaks and valleys. Like, you get blast beats, thrashy sections, good groovy sections, pummeling breakdowns. The song Dissolve Me has an absolutely disgusting, almost like Death Doom breakdown on it that was just pure filth. I love all the old school Morbid Angel tremolos that are all over here. And this actually came out in December of 2021. So, I mean, that's kind of a month where a lot of shit gets overlooked. So I didn't even hear about this until recently, which this was also in the Headsplit box, but I actually bought this before. Like, I think I got this on either Caligari or maybe Rotted Life. And yeah, this wasn't even on my radar. Again, like, December releases are always kind of a weird thing because a lot of stuff gets overlooked because everyone's already making their year-end lists and preparing for the next year. But yeah, this is absolutely sick. And I mean, with the pedigree of the members in there, I kind of expected it to be. And one thing I will definitely say on this, the intro and the outro are both really good. And that is something I rarely ever say. I usually bitch about that shit, but the horror synth aspect, like, they capture that fucking Fulci vibe so fucking well. It just works. It's just really good. And yeah, I said both an intro and an outro were good and not unnecessary fucking bullshit. It rarely happens, but it happened. And yeah, this was a fucking really good release. I'm super glad I picked this one up. And thank you to Headsplit for saying it, because John got a copy of this, and hopefully he has jammed this and realized how absolutely fucking filthy this is. Killer stuff. Recommend checking out this band. I mean, check out all the bands that they're associated with too, especially Blood Freak. I'm a huge fan of those guys too. But if you want your death metal filthy and kind of like death grindy, and I mean, if you love the Portland sound in general, definitely check this out. Ectoplasma, Inferno Kabbalah. This is the 4th album from this Greek death metal act. Came out this year on Memento Mori Records. And I've been a fan of this band for a while. I got into them around Cavern of Unfoul Beings, which I strongly recommend checking out. It's an awesome old school death metal album. Very much akin to, like, again, Floridian death metal, but kind of mix that with a little bit of the extra brutality you get from, like, Suffocation and, like, early Immolation. Now, apparently there's been some changes in terms of lineup, because at least as far as this one goes, this is only a 2-man project in the studio. I guess there were some members that left from the last one, Wide-Eyed Trance, which was really fucking good. But their sound is very much intact. Again, it's very old school, very Floridian, like lots of, like, Morbid Angel and Deicide and Monstrosity vibes on here. Except for this one, I kind of have an issue with the vocals on here. The music itself is absolutely awesome. Like, it's very dynamic writing. There's lots of really good hooks. It's even technical in spots. but the vocals are very dry and they're not very good, which is weird because that's probably the first time I've ever complained about the vocals in this band, and it's the same vocalist. I even went back and listened to their older albums, and I did not have an issue with the vocals at all. I think it's just maybe they're up front and they're very dry. There's not a lot of reverb on them, and it's just the delivery. It doesn't sound as powerful. Like, it just sounds very standard, which sucks because this might be the best batch of songwriting that this band has had. Like, these songs are fucking fantastic. The title track and Gruesome Sacred Orgasms, which, all right, that's a thing, catchier than hell. Like, the hooks in it are immediate. Like, I love the songwriting, the dynamics, the lead work, the drum work, like everything about them is fantastic, but you get this very basic vocal performance that just doesn't sound recorded very well on top of all that, and it kind of takes you out of the songs. And it sucks because a lot of this is really fun. The opening track, God is Dead, Satan Lives, is a Rosemary's Baby themed death metal song. Fuck yeah, I'm on board. My Medieval Urges Materialized, which again, they're having a lot of fun with the song titles too, actually has some more brutal death metal elements, like some early suffocation to it. And I absolutely love the machine gun breakdown of Desecration of the Christian Existence. Man, that sounds like they kind of took that one from fucking Incantation. That sounds like a fucking Incantation title if I've ever heard one. And I've heard a lot. Legit, I love everything about this album but the vocals, and it's just weird that the vocals will never a fucking issue for me before. But musically, this is so fucking good that, of course, I'm going to recommend the shit out of it, and of course, I'll tell you to listen to it and form your own opinions, but yeah, the vocals really hurt this one, and it sucks because, again, I think this is some of the best songwriting they've showcased so far. But again, form your own opinions. You may really dig the vocal performance on here. I just thought it was, not very good, but musically, if you love old school death metal and really well written old school death metal songs, holy shit, this is amazing. Check it out. Insineratehymn Disembodied. This is the second album from this California-based death metal act. And yes, they did name themselves after what I think is one of the worst Deicide albums, but it is kind of a clever play on words. But this is really awesome death metal, and it's kind of cool because it's both Swedish death metal, like in terms of like that Stockholm sound, and US death metal kind of combined. Like, there's a bit of an HM2 tone. It has a lot of that, snarling sound to the production, but when it comes down to the style, like, there's a lot of Cannibal Corpse worship on here. So imagine Cannibal Corpse and Entombed sort of just merged together to form something ungodly heavy that the 90s probably was not ready for, and it would sound like this. The production here is solid, maybe a little bit compressed, but it sounds good. Lots of thrashy riffs, but there's a ton of groove to them. A lot of stuff in here kind of reminded me of like Tomb Mold at their most straightforward when they're not doing something like a little bit more technical. And it's kind of cool to hear them like switch styles a little bit, like Intransive Sanction, very Cannibal Corpse oriented. Like, it just lays down those nasty angular riffs that you expect from like maybe more modern Cannibal Corpse. But then you go to Immolated Ascension and it's pure like Swedish D beat. Like, the riffs are a little bit less palm muted and you kind of get this nasty ringing like HM2 fucking buzzsaw sound to it, and it sounds like it came out of fucking Sweden in the 90s. And for the most part, the vocals on here definitely remind me more of like early Cannibal Corpse. Like, it has a little bit of the early Barnes energy that he does not have anymore. But I do love the vocal shift on the cover of Bitter Loss, which, I mean, that makes sense. They should have covered a Cannibal Corpse song too, just for good measure. But Bitter Loss, one of my favorite Entombed songs, and he shifts his vocals up a little bit so they kind of have a little bit of more of that LG delivery versus like, say, Corpse Grinder or Barnes. And I just thought that was a nice attention to detail in terms of like changing it up a bit. Awesome album. This came out on Blood Harvest and Rotted Life. I strongly recommend it. Like, again, if you're looking for a cool bridge between Stockholm and Tampa, like, that's a really fucking long bridge in terms of like an actual bridge. But yeah, this sonically is kind of one of those albums that is definitely a bridge between the two, and they did it really fucking well. I definitely want to check out their first album, see if it's as good as this one, but yeah, I can strongly recommend this one because this is just disgusting, awesome death metal, and you should check it out. Intolerance, Dark Paths of Humanity. It's the first full length from the Spanish death metal act. I actually picked up their EP not too long ago. I think it was maybe last year or the year before. Something like Tales from the Dripstone Cave, which I thought was a kind of confusing title. But I really dug it. Like, this is straight up old school death metal. Again, a lot of death metal in this batch. But these guys have such a cool blend of like incantation, like sort of cavernous death metal, a little bit of bolt thrower groove to it, and like asphyx, like sort of death doominess. All those things I absolutely love, and it's pretty much combined in here, and this is an absolutely killer album. The guitars are absolutely crushing. It's great lead work on here. I love the vocals on here. They're very dry and throaty and kind of like a little bit of a mix of like Martin Van Druten and John McEntee. And you have a backup vocalist throwing in some like higher, more blackened screams. So I don't know, it's kind of like a cool atmospheric thing, but man, this is just driven by riff after riff. And I think that's where the bolt thrower side comes out, because man, these riffs are fucking catchy, especially the title track. The title track at the end is an absolute monster of a song, but I mean, I loved every fucking track in here. Like, I found great riffs on every single track. And I did find one like kind of strange thing on here. I don't know if it was like a blip in the recording, but the end of the song, Cataleptic Despair, it sounds like there's a dinner bell that gets chimed at the end of the song. And I have no idea why that's there. I don't know. It's just sort of a strange thing. But overall, this is an absolutely killer album. I have no idea what's going on in the album cover. Like, this album cover is, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, there's a snake in the sky, and there's like a stadium, and you have to go to it, but there's also like a path over here too, but it goes through the stadium, so like the stadium's a pit stop. I don't know. Someone explain this shit to me. I mean, it looks cool. It looks metal as fuck. I just have no idea what the fuck is going on. But in terms of the album and the music overall, this is absolutely fantastic. I definitely plan on jamming this one a lot. Just flat out sick shit. Like, they surpassed their EP. I think this is even fucking better than what they had in their EP. So yeah, if you have not checked out this band, strongly recommend it. If you're a big bolt thrower, asphyx, incantation fan, you're gonna find shit you like on this. I almost guarantee it. Check it out. Malignant, Reign of Decrepitude. This is the second EP from this LA-based death metal act, and this also includes their 2018 EP as well, Purity Through Putrefaction. Now, this is not to be confused with, well, a lot of other Malignant bands, namely the one that I have from New York that's an all-instrumental, like, technical, brutal death metal act. And stylistically, I would say these guys are a lot different. This is way more old-school death metal, definitely lays on the bolt thrower groove, but a lot of the Florida sound, like, so a lot of Cannibal Corpse. In fact, there's even a Cannibal Corpse cover on here, Put Them to Death. And it's weird, like, all right, I know some of the stuff was from different eras of the band, namely like the 2018 EP versus this new one, but the production on like the Cannibal Corpse cover, which I assume was part of this EP, sounds a lot different than the, you know, 2 tracks that are part of this new EP. The production just sounds different, like less compressed on Put Them to Death. It actually sounds a lot better. But yeah, I have to give him credit on some of these song titles. Depolarization of the Spine, that's a pretty fucked up fucking title, because that means you're like flipping the spine on its end. That means like the end near your butt is up by your head, and yeah, no, that's pretty fucking gross, and I mean, you're not surviving that, that's for damn sure. Now, while I like the newer material, I think I liked the 2018 EP a little bit more. Production's a little bit more raw, it kind of suits their sound. The intro, Purity, is maybe a little bit long, like it's a long synthy intro, and I mean, it goes on for almost 3 minutes, so that just feels like that's a little too bloated. Like, cut that shit in half and get to the riffs. Again, pretty much sounds like Cannibal Corpse, albeit I think the lead work is a little bit more melodic on here. And there is a cool, pretty obvious nod to Corporeal Jigsaw Quandary on Forced Asphyxiation, like it breaks into the fucking Corporeal Jigsaw Quandary breakdown that opens up the fucking song. It feels like a very obvious nod to it, and it's just for that moment, and they do kind of move on from it, but I like nods to just fucking classics like that. Overall, this is pretty decent. It feels more like a compilation than an actual EP, because again, it has their older material, and again, the mix kind of varies from different tracks, but I mean, it's a good sample size of what this band does, which is just straight up old school death metal, and it's pretty good. I mean, based on this EP, I would probably snag a full length by these guys whenever it comes out. Like, this just has all the stuff I like about death metal. Granted, I think I've heard it done better before, but this is still really good. So yeah, I mean, if you just like old school death metal, check this out. Unconsecrated, Reveal of the Dead. This is the first album from the Spanish death metal act. Came out last year. This band has actually been around since like 2006, but you know, like lineup changes, breaking up, reforming. They didn't get back together until 2019, and this is their first album. I actually have a compilation of their earlier material and demos, and I really dug it. In fact, I thought they were from Sweden because, well, This album sounds like a dirtier, fucking nastier version of Clandestine. Or as Shred says it, Clandestine, which still don't quite get that one, but that was a hilarious fucking moment. This is filthy, raw, very HM2 oriented fucking death metal, like it's buzzsawed as fuck. Possibly a bit much, like the production here is really raw and the levels are kind of odd. Like I think the vocals maybe a little bit too loud, and it just sounds like there's so much extra sizzle on those guitars. Like it's almost kind of painful, but I kind of dig it, which kind of says a lot about me. The melodies in here can be really odd. Like the song Eternal Rest has this weird, like crawling melody that just feels just oddly atonal, and not like the cool, like dissonant, atmospheric atonal. Like it's just like, is that really like a chord progression there, or like a note progression? Like I feel like you just hit anything and just like, yeah, we're gonna repeat that. And honestly, it reminded me more of like Nintendo music, like early NES music, except someone doing a guitar cover of it. And yeah, I don't know if it necessarily worked, but a lot of this is just straight to the point, old school death metal. Again, fiercely latched onto that Stockholm sound, but they do it pretty damn well. I mean, to be honest, a lot of the stuff you've probably heard before by bands that have done it before. Like this is, again, so latched onto that old school sound, there's not a lot of like stuff that breaks out of it. Like there's some Death Doom moments in the last track, Putridification, which honestly I think is one of the best ones on here, and it's a pretty long song. I think it's like 8 minutes, but it's really good. But a lot of this, I mean, like I said, if you've jammed Dismembered and Entombed, and while that's, you know, cool, and I like that, there's really not much on here that I would say makes it stand out from a lot of the other HM2 bands out there. Still, I mean, if you like, you know, HM2 death metal and the whole Stockholm sound, I recommend this. This does sound really good. Again, it's just stuff you've probably heard before by other bands, but they're good bands. So why not just listen to that style again with a different band with a very similar logo to Entombed or Dismember? Why not, right? Check it out. Frozen Soul, Encased in Ice. This is the 2021 reissue of their original demo, and I was initially kind of pissed when I saw that this was only being reissued on vinyl through Century Media. So I was, you know, definitely hopeful they would put it out on CD, and this one came out on Corpse Gristle Records. And yeah, this includes their original demo. And granted, these demo songs are songs that you've definitely heard before because they made it onto Crypt Device, but it was so cool hearing the raw demo versions of this amazing band. By the way, didn't say it, they're from Texas, and they sound like Bolt Thrower. I like to call them Cold Thrower, but holy shit, this band's fucking awesome. Now, I have to admit, my main reason for picking this up were the cover songs. And they do a cover of Witch's Coven by Mortician, which they fucking slay it. And that one's, like, I believe done on the demo, so it has way more raw production. But as bonus tracks, I believe on this edition and the reissue edition are covers of Mandatory Suicide by Slayer, which that cover fucking rips. It's one of my favorite Slayer melodies ever. It's always stuck in my fucking head. And Morbid Devourment by Entombed. So much Entombed love in this fucking stack, and yeah, they fucking crushed that cover too. It's just brutal as fuck. I think the song Tormented in Time might be like a B-side from Crypt Device, but I'm not entirely sure. But it has production that sounds a lot like their full length, so I assume it's probably a B-side. But yeah, this is absolutely crushing. And again, while all the songs that were on the original demo ended up on Crypt Device because those songs are fucking good, it's kind of cool hearing them in their more raw form. And again, those covers were fucking worth it alone. I was so happy to fucking find this. Frozen Soul fucking rules. I mean, they're currently probably touring right now and fucking killing it on stage. I'm actually envious that I can't make it down to Texas for their giant show with like Creeping Death and everyone. Like, it looks like it's gonna be a fucking blast. But there's shows around here I'm definitely gonna hit, and I will eventually see Frozen Soul again because this band is not to be missed live. If you have not had a chance to check this out and you've been looking for a CD version, I found this on Nuclear War Now, and it's fucking awesome. So yeah, this is 100% worth owning. Again, the covers, surprisingly the thing that I really absolutely loved in here, but again, I loved all the other stuff too. It's fucking Frozen Soul. This band fucking rules. And if you have not checked them out by now, holy shit, check them out. And finally, we have Universally Estranged, reared up in Spectral Predation. I don't even know what the fuck that means. This is the debut album from this Texas-based death metal act. Ah, man. All right. This album is a head fuck. This is some wild sci-fi inspired, like technical, maybe arguably progressive death metal, but still fiercely old school and just nasty sounding. This is just nuts. The opening intro sounds like space jazz. Like if Miles Davis made it into Star Wars and he was a member of the Cantina Band. Like, it's kind of just weird and spacey. There's like phaser effects, like phasing in instruments, and it's wild. And then you break into this insanely technical, sci-fi oriented death metal that literally will make your head spin. The riffs are twisted, very angular. They kind of crawl all over the place, but there's a lot of good hooks that they like to repeat. A lot of this reminds me of Blood Incantation, granted in smaller doses because the songs generally are a bit shorter. But man, do they pack a lot of dynamics and weird time signature changes and transitions all over these songs. Probably one of my favorite ones on here is The Visitor. That song, there's like a little bit of that, you know, techier era death, like human and individual thought patterns in terms of the riff structure, but you get the big cavernous vocals, like kind of like Incantation or Blood Incantation. And then you get these cool spacey synths that'll just kind of come out of nowhere and just kind of reset the mood because you've been spiraling through space into a fucking black hole full of like Lovecraftian creatures or some horse shit. And then the synths come in and kind of calm you down. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna die horribly, but this sounds cool. The production is really fucking good in here, and honestly, I think fun. Like, they had some fun with like weird transitional stuff in here, like throwing in again those sci-fi synths and like space noises and shit like in between tracks. And I don't know, the album flows really well. It's just like this twisted cosmic journey. And holy shit, the drum work is absolutely amazing on here. I mean, all the songs have great drum work on it. Well, maybe not the interlude, because there are no drums in there. So that's the only one. But one I had centered was Sentient Meat Sack, which I completely identify with. That song is just wild drum fills and like just crazy breakdowns. Like, this whole album is as nuts as the album cover. I don't know what the hell is going on there, but it looks painful. He doesn't look like he's enjoying it. There's so much going on in here, but it's so much fun to like really sift through it. Like, I've listened to this a couple of times and it's just a nuts sounding album, but it does know how to settle down and like just deliver some solid hooks and some solid riffs. So it's not so technical to the point where it's just very difficult to get into. Like, honestly, I think if you can get into Blood Incantation, which it seems like a lot of people are, you can get into this. And I would like to say this is kind of on par with what Blood Incantation does, except maybe a little bit more fun. Like, it's just a wild album and it doesn't feel like it takes itself super seriously, and I love that. Like, that's the whole vibe on here. Riffs, sci-fi themes, it's fucking nerdier than shit. This is just fucking killer, and I picked this up on a whim. Like, I heard one track and was like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. And then hearing the entire album, which only runs about a half an hour, fuck, this is just crazy. Honestly, the more I listen to this could have made it on my year-end list last year if I had actually knew about it. But now I know about it, and yeah, this is fucking amazing. So yeah, if you like death metal and cosmic mind fucks with giant brain tentacles, vines, I don't know, whatever the fuck's going on there, check this out. This is such a fucking good album. Alright, that knocks out another collection update. I already have another stack that I'm going to get into, but after that I should be pretty much caught up, so I can, you know, maybe do a little bit more shopping and actually get down some underrated albums videos, which again I've missed doing. But I want to like get caught up on this, and of course make sure you guys get to check out all the wild music I've been listening to. So as for the channel, working on finding out a date to get together for the Pantera ranking. What's John Jammin' is coming back. He's actually working on getting that together. His work schedule has been pretty rough here lately, but we're gonna get that stuff rolling again. And of course, tons of reviews. I want to go over what's all coming out in July. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have some fucking banger releases because it's July, and I mean, literally every month we find some killer stuff. And yeah, I do want to get back to underrated albums, but again, we're gonna get caught up here. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there'll be a link down below. There'll also be a link down below to thrallsmetal.com where you can get one of our kick-ass shirts. And as for Denver Death Fest, I don't know when this comes out, so I don't know if we've made an announcement yet, because I'm in the past and you're seeing this in the future. But if there hasn't been an announcement yet, it is coming soon, and if there has been, then holy shit, look at that lineup. It's pretty cool. I don't know what's on it just yet because we haven't made the announcement, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it's going to be pretty cool. Anyway, that'll take place September 30th through October 2nd in Denver, Colorado, because duh. And we are looking forward to seeing you guys there. I'm pretty sure it'll be a blast. So yeah, if you see us there, come hang out with us and we'll drink some beers and talk about metal and a whole bunch of other crazy shit. And of course, thank you all for watching, subscribing, following, commenting, all that shit. We love doing this. I know I say this shit at the end of every fucking video, but I mean it. Like, this is such an awesome thing. And you know, I love the fact that we built this cool community here, because I mean, I love hearing from all you guys. It's fucking awesome. Getting to bullshit about metal with people across the world, I mean, that's become one of my favorite fucking things, and it's because you guys showed up. You guys made this channel something else. You guys are the reason why we do this. This is just pure fucking fun, and it's all thanks to you. So, once again, thank you all very much for watching, and we will catch you later.